welcome into episode 34 of the Level Flight podcast. We keep trucking along here in the summer. I've got Elliott with me. Elliott, how are you doing?
I'm good. We're missing somebody. It's unfortunate. It's not that Brian's sick or anything. He's just super busy. He's got lots going on. So
yeah, the way you said it's unfortunate, it was like, whoa, like what's going on here?
Well, we want to have him here. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, well yeah, totally. He's very busy with the Gold Eyes. Brian does so much good work for them. If I was plugging the stuff he did, I'd be here for the entirety of this episode. So just go look at his Twitter. He posts a bunch of stuff there. But yeah, we're missing him this week. But we're having a bit of a fun-ish episode where we're doing a bit of a deal or no deal type mock trades episode. You know, a lot of people throw out mock trades this type of year. So I threw out a tweet and a lot of people responded with a lot of mock trades because it's, you know, people love the mock trades. And we're going to take like 4 or 5 of them and just see whether or not we would do it. If we were Kevin Cheveldayoff, right? If we were the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets.
If we were an armchair GM.
Yes. We did the armchair GM episode a few weeks ago. We're just going to do it every single week now until we actually become the GMs of the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah.
That is the dream.
We'll get there eventually. Don't worry. But first, we need to talk about the fact that last night, the Vegas Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup. Elliott, does this make you feel better about the Jets' round 1 defeat? Yes or no?
I think it does a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, we talked about this a while back. I think it does just because the only game that Vegas looked somewhat vulnerable was game 1 against the Jets.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, I don't want to say it, and because fans of other teams are probably going to get upset, but Vegas kind of cruised after that. Yeah. I know they did cruise against the Jets, but after game 1, they kind of cruised. So to me, I feel a little bit better just because at least the Jets kind of gave them a game in game 1, and they competed a good chunk throughout the series. It was just 1 or 2 games that they didn't look great. So, I mean, it is what it is, but it's not like it's like, oh, the Jets held them to took them to 7 and it made it better, but it still feels a little bit better.
Yeah. So with a few tweaks, you know, the Jets are right there.
Unfortunately not. No, they are absolutely nowhere near being a playoff contender. I actually saw a tweet. I'm not sure if you were the one that retweeted it. It may have been somebody else. It was about they'd figured out that the last 6 out of 11 Stanley Cup champions had 4-star producers on it. And 8 of the last 11 had 6 or something like that. So I'm sorry, the Jets have not even 2, sometimes 1, depending on the season. So they're not even close, but they're also playing a different brand of hockey. I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff knows what era it is. So.
I mean, Vegas is like the deepest team in the NHL. They won a Stanley Cup, and Adin Hill played great, but they won a Stanley Cup with Adin Hill in net. Adin Hill was a backup goalie for the majority of his career, gets healthy, plays great in the playoffs. I'm not discrediting what he did, but for a team to almost make goaltending not matter in a sense, they beat the Jets with Brossoit. Yeah, they beat the Jets with Brossoit, and then they were beating Edmonton with Brossoit as well. Or they were tied in that series, and then Adin Hill came in and they won that series, and the rest is history. But they're such an impressive team. But then you also look at their cap sheet, and they're like $11 million or $12 million, or maybe it's even more than that over the cap. So there's I'm not saying there's an asterisk to the Stanley Cup. Any GM can do that, right? The Jets can finagle the cap in a way that they're $18 million over the cap next year too. If the Jets had Mark Stone, they would be doing the exact same thing, right?
I mean, apparently I heard that they could have, so they could be in this position, but
the year that Vegas traded for him, I'm pretty sure it was reported the Jets were one of the teams in on him, when he was a Senator. I think that's where that conversation stems from, but would have been a Manitoban. Great story.
Well, actually, you might as well call it the Manitoba Golden Knights at this point.
Yes. I think they have 5 or 6 players on the team, plus their GM is Manitoban. But White Cloud, Stone, Colasar,
Reeves.
Who else do we got? Reeves, or no, he's not there anymore.
Oh yeah,
Reeves
sorry,
is on
Minnesota.
the Rangers now.
Oh, sorry,
Minnesota,
Rangers.
yeah.
One of the, I don't see.
Reeves is somewhere.
This is the problem with Ryan Reeves. It's hard to keep track of him. Like you only know when he's in the box for 5 minutes. That's about
Yeah.
it.
We should know that he's on Minnesota though, because he fought after that whole Ehlers thing. Yeah.
We did talk about that. Wow,
Yeah.
we must be really good at this podcasting thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't even know where Ryan Reeves plays, whatever. But no, they have a lot of Manitoban players. The Stanley Cup is going to be here quite a bit. I remember going to Jonathan Taves Arena when he won the cup and he brought it, and there was this long line you had to wait in. Oh,
Why does that sound so? Oh my god. That just sounds. I know it's not. I know that I don't think that they obviously they named it after him, but it just kind of sounds kind of egotistical. But it makes sense for it to be there. You know? Do you know where I'm coming from? It's just weird. Yeah. It's like Jonathan Taves is at his own arena with the Stanley Cup, but I don't know. I was talking to some people last night, and I said I don't understand why they don't like. I know the cup doesn't make its rounds, but I don't know why they don't just keep the cup here for multiple days and weeks at a time.
Yeah.
With all the Manitoba guys that are here.
Yeah.
Because now it's going to be. As far as I know, they don't do that. Even if guys are in the same city. As far as I know, the cup just like it follows a list and it just kind of goes. It comes and goes. So it's going to come and go like 5 or 6 times this year. Or this summer. So it's going to be a little crazy, but it'll be cool to have it here. We'll see. I'll
go like the 4th time.
Well, yeah, because by then no one's gonna want to be there. I guess
the first time when Mark Stone brings it, it's gonna be like, everyone's gonna want to go, and it's gonna be nuts. When like Keegan Colasar brings it, and it's like the 4th time that the cup is here, that's when I'll go.
Yeah,
that's when I'll go.
Yeah.
But anyways, keep an eye out for the Stanley Cup this summer because there's a good chance it's gonna be here at the end of the day. Like that's,
I'd say it's a pretty good chance.
Yeah. And then we keep touching on summer sports every episode. The Bombers actually finally played a game. We've been talking about them for the last few weeks. They play this week again on Friday in Saskatchewan. It's not Labor Day. It's not a Banjo Bowl. But
and that's what
it's
I'm
a game against
about.
Saskatchewan.
I'm so confused.
Sometimes they do this.
I know they play them 3 times normally in the season, but normally it's like the first 2 times are normally Labor Day and Banjo Bowl, and they don't play them again until late in the season. So that's why I'm confused. That's why I'm like, why are they playing Saskatchewan? All right, but if you're trying to keep ratings up, that's the best thing to do early on in the year. Just put the best rivalry in the CFL on early in week 2.
Yeah, and the Bombers in week 1, I mean, they dominated the Hamilton Tiger Cats for 3 quarters, and then for 5 minutes of the 4th quarter, fell apart completely, and then went right back to dominating and ended up being fine. So, I tend to believe the 3.5 quarters we saw where the Bombers just absolutely throttled the Ticats. And if like the 2 fluky plays where they fumble for a touchdown, kickoff, fumble, touchdown, I just don't like, that's just not a repeatable thing. Like you just don't see that in football. So the Bombers are a wagon. We know this. Zach Claros was throwing dimes.
He looks like he's having the easiest time of his life out there.
And Lawler's not even on the field yet.
Yeah.
Best O-line in the league, best receiving core in the league.
His pockets looked fantastic. Like I don't think he had. I think the only time he did have a bad pocket was when he got when there was this fumble.
Yeah,
that was probably the only time that I was like, oh, that pocket wasn't great. Other than that, he got to stand in there, do whatever he wanted, and kind of went, I think I'm gonna throw to you this play. So
Dalton Schoen, Rashid Bailey, Nick Dembski. Dembski. He looks more open. There you go. Like
or Carlton Agudosi.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I had him in fantasy, but he only had the 1 catch. Oh well. I thought he was a lock for a touchdown.
Well, at 6'6" as a receiver, you'd kind of hope that he is a lock, but they weren't looking. They didn't get into the red zone for a touchdown. It was like they're at the 40, and you're like, okay, probably a Brady Oliveira run here. Oh nope, deep ball to Dempsey. Okay, touchdown.
Touchdown. Yeah. No, it was a really fun game to be at. I mean, it was a gorgeous night. 29,000 people, great crowd. Bombers were up. It didn't hurt that the Bombers were up 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Right, people were partying. It was Friday night. It was great. And I can't wait to go back this week. Saskatchewan, they won their first game. They squeaked by Edmonton. I think it was 17-13. So I don't really know what to expect. The Bombers are going to be favorites. They're going to be favorites in like every game. So if they ever lose, it's going to be an upset.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. But they're not the only team playing. We got the Winnipeg Gold Eyes as well, who came back home after a tough 6-game losing streak that Brian talked about on last week's episode. And they swept the Chicago Dogs, who were at the time in first in the entire league. And then it's shifted to Kansas City, who, since they beat Chicago 3 times, Kansas City moved into first, and then Kansas City beat the Gold Eyes 3 straight times. So it's kind of an up and down season right now for the Gold Eyes. They won last night on the road. They got Jacob Bockley back, who's one of their best hitters. Brian could obviously tell you more about what's going on, but pretty up and down
standings
season.
Pulled up.
Yeah.
The Gold Eyes are right now second last in the West Division. The Kansas City and Fargo are kind of pulling away at the top. Kansas City's 19-9. Fargo is 18-9. Everyone else is below 500, and the Gold Eyes are kind of just in that mix. I do believe, I'm not sure if the playoff format has changed. I think it has. It used to be that the top 2 teams would make the playoffs. I do believe now it's the top team gets. It's a top 4 in both divisions now?
Yeah, I believe so.
I know for a while it also.
4.
I think it's 3 because I know that there's now a game before the before the divisional round. So I believe it's the top 3 teams, and 2 and 3 have to play each other. So technically the Gold Eyes would still be in play there. They're only half a game back of Sioux City. And so I mean, we'll see. They've been kind of up and down, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll all depend on how that goes.
And yeah, like this team could totally go on they went on a 6-game losing streak. They could go on an 8-game winning streak next week. And just like that, they're well in a playoff spot, right? They're in a mix of a lot of middling teams. So the first one to go on a long winning streak is going to have the upper hand. And then the Winnipeg Sea Bears went on the road and played pretty well. I mean, they won their home opener. They were 1-0. Then they went on the road and came back from that road trip 4-1. I was not expecting them to go 3-1 on the road trip, but that's pretty good mark for a team that's just learning how to play together and stuff like that. And then they come home. I was in the building Monday night and they lost by 30. They got blown out. They were down like 15 in the first quarter, and it was not close after that. The crowd was still into it though. Like when the Jets and Bombers are getting blown out, which for the Bombers again doesn't happen often, but let's say when the Jets are getting blown out, people like just start to leave. Like if it's like the start of the third period and the Jets are down 5-1, you're gonna see the stadium start to flow out a little bit.
Yeah.
The Sea Bears, they were down 30 the whole game. Stadium was packed. Every time they went on like a 6-0 run or like a 6-2 run, like it didn't even have to be a big run. They were going a 6-0 run, and the people were up clapping. They were getting hyped. Like the crowd is great. They sold out again. There's a lot of support for this team. They play again. When you hear this, it'll be tonight. They play again Thursday. And hopefully it's a better effort because the fans are there. The fans are sticking around even when they're getting blown out. And the team played great on the road. I assume you have more to say about that.
They were fantastic. Well, they had their moments on the road. Obviously, we've talked about them in Elam time. I won't get too much into that. If you want to get into it, you can hear more of my comments in my game recaps. I know it's a shameless plug, but I'm not joking when I say in every single game recap that I've written, and I've now done 5 of them. I'm doing number 6. This is the first one that I'm doing that I didn't talk about the target score. Because they've just been struggling there so much. They did do that on the road. It wasn't fantastic. They looked great for 3.5 quarters, and then they seem to fall apart. This game, I will say, before the season started, I looked at everybody's roster. Obviously, I did a breakdown. Edmonton and Niagara have 2 of the best defenses, at least just on paper, in my opinion. And as evident, Edmonton shows that they have a really good defense because they kind of just decided that Teddy Allen can score as much as he wants, but as long as they stop AJ Anosike and they make sure that there isn't a tertiary scorer.
It just seemed like the Sea Bears were in this constant loop of like turnover. Edmonton runs in transition, Off a
Hit a three.
transition, gets a wide open three, boom. Come back down, turnover, transition, wide open three, boom. It was like, and it was just constant. Like Edmonton went on a few like 12-0 runs where it was just turnover three. It was ridiculous.
Their transition defense from the Seabirds was horrendous, like absolutely terrible. The offense wasn't great because they were forcing up bad shots, and then they just didn't look like they were in it for a good chunk of the first quarter. They looked completely out of it. Now, again, as much as Edmonton is great on defense, they were on the season coming into this game. They were 1-3, but the most important stat, they were shooting 22% from three.
Really?
Yeah, they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. And then they go off for a game where I think they shot like 45% as a team.
Yeah.
So you have a night where a bunch of guys are hitting. It's kind of hard to, it's like guys on shooting streaks in the NHL or guys on hitting streaks. When guys are hitting, it's kind of hard to stop a team, especially when it's the entire team. Because then you're like, okay, well, I can't leave anybody open.
Right.
So if someone drives and kicks, it's kind of over. But they play Brampton again. They get a rematch against the Honey Badgers, who were the only other team to beat them other than Edmonton. And they were actually, Brampton was the only team that they kept it close. So it should be good. I'm hoping for a bounce back performance. I will be in attendance for that game. So
there you go.
Should be good.
Yeah, should be a good one. I mean, yeah, if they sell out again, Brampton's a good team. They beat the Sea Bears once. I think it's going to be a great game.
I hope so. I hope so.
That's about all for our little summer sports recap. Now it's time to play Deal or No Deal. But first, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. Again, it's going to be Brian. It's going to be weird because he's not here, but Brian still does our ad reads, so he's going to do the ad read. You're going to hear from him, and we'll be right back.
So light the lamp during the hockey playoffs with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can make a $5 bet and instantly score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 1-800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/hockey terms.
And we're back, and it is time for some armchair GM mock trades. Elliott, are you ready?
I'm so ready. I love doing this stuff. This stuff's fun to me.
Yeah,
so I'm excited.
I put the tweet out, and so many people responded. So many people love these mock trades. Some of them are like crazy. Like we'll get into some at the end that are just like nuts. Like if that happened, that would be unfathomable. But let's start with an actual realistic one. Someone suggests PLD not to Montreal, which is the first not to Montreal crazy part of this trade. But no, PLD with an extension in place plus Blake Wheeler, half of his salary retained, to the Rangers for Alexis Lafreniere, Braden Schneider, a first-round pick, and Barclay Goodrow. Elliott, deal or no deal?
I think you can work something out here. If I have to pick deal or no deal, I would probably say deal. I know we've heard that oh my god, I almost said Pierre Lafreniere. Alexis Lafreniere is kind of not working out in New York, and PLD has been rumored to potentially want to go play for the Rangers. Now, do I think that the Rangers give up on Lafreniere already? I don't know, but I think it'd be an interesting trade.
Ready. I think they're ready to give up on him because they got to win now. Like their core is getting older.
Yeah.
Panarin's into his 30s. Kreider's into his 30s. I think Zibanejad's into his 30s. Shesterkin is now like 27 or 28, and that's the window. Like you've got Shesterkin for the next 3-4 years, and then these guys are going to be 35, and Shesterkin's going to be on the wrong side of 30, and that's your window. So I think if Lafreniere doesn't fit that in the next 2-3 years, and Dubois does, I think that's what they'd go for.
Well, and I think the thought here is you're basically, if I look at this trade, I think what you're getting is basically you're trading. I know the value's not the same, but the player type of Wheeler and Lafreniere and point production is basically the same. So I think that's where this trade kind of goes is, okay, well, part of the value for PLD is you get Lafreniere, but Wheeler is basically an older and more veteran version of Laf at this point. And then the first kind of fills out the value. I think this is a pretty decent deal. I don't know if I'd take Barclay Goodrow. I'd probably maybe try to finagle somebody else.
That might be just to make salary work. Kind of
that could that could be the case. But I don't think this is a terrible trade. I think I'd have to look deeper into Schneider, but like having
Schneider, I can provide a little bit on Schneider. He's a first round pick, 2020, 19th overall, I believe. And this was his first full season last season. He's pretty sheltered, but he played really well in those minutes. And he's the kind of guy, I believe he's 21 or 22. Let me just double check that. Yeah, he's 21. So the Jets have said they don't,
same age.
Yeah, they don't want to rebuild, right? So going and getting players that are 21 and not like 18, not like just drafted prospects. That's probably what they're looking at. So a former first round pick who is just looking for
firsts.
Yeah, who are both looking for fresh places, a bigger opportunity.
Yeah,
those are the kind of guys that I think the Jets are going to be targeting, and this deal fills that for sure. And then you get the first round pick,
and you get a first. Yeah. So I think actually this is. We'll talk about the other deals. I think the other deals are pretty good too, but this one's kind of, out of all of them that we've looked at, or that I've seen as we talk about them, it might be my favorite, just because you're getting two guys that have NHL minutes and still have high ceilings.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then again, if Lafreniere figures it out, that's a good deal. But that's a big if. That question was submitted by Justin on Twitter, Justin L99. I just wanted to shout that out. And let's move on to the next one, unless you have anything else.
No, let's go on to the next one.
All right, so the next one is involving Mark Scheifele to the Carolina Hurricanes for Martin Necas, Jack Drury, and a draft pick. Deal or no deal?
I'm going to go with no deal.
Really?
Just be a little controversial.
Just cuz.
If I'm the Jets and I'm trading Mark Scheifele, even if you have to throw in a little bit more, and this is going to sound really crazy and really fantasy hockey sort of thing, and people
we don't do that here.
Yeah, we don't do that here. People are going to get mad at me.
You can't just trade for Jack Eichel in the middle of his prime and then go and win a Stanley Cup, Elliott. You can't do that.
Yeah. And that's not even what I'm saying here. I think I think the Jets, after seeing Vegas, and I know this may sound weird, and I think you know where I'm going with this. I think Jarvis is on the table. If you're trading Scheifele, I think Jarvis should be at least discussed. If that doesn't work because Carolina doesn't want to give him, fine. But I think if I'm the Jets and Carolina comes at you with Necas and Drury and a pick, I'd maybe go, okay, if you want to swap Necas, I'm assuming probably Necas, Jarvis has a little bit more value than Necas.
Long-term value. Yeah.
Long-term value. Sure. But if I'm the Jets, I go, can we swap Necas for Jarvis and you have a deal? And if they say no, because you know what? No, we have Jarvis in our plans and we're going to sign him long-term. Okay, fine. But even if they say, okay, throw in at 2/3 or something, Scheifele in 2/3 for Drury, Jarvis, and they give us a second, I'd be all over that deal. I think I think the Jets seeing Vegas win with Winnipeg players, I think should be a wake-up call that we probably should bring in some homegrown talent because they're not bad. And they may actually want to play here because they're at home. It's not even a close to home thing. They're in their hometown. If they don't want to play here, then fine, but I don't know. I know Seth Jarvis's dad personally. I'm sure he would love for his son to be here because I know he flies all the way out to Carolina to watch games. So I think having him here would probably be better. And I know Seth. I'm assuming Seth would probably love to play here. I know he probably is
Yeah.
enjoying his time in Carolina, but I think this specific deal I'm kind of saying no to, because I think the Jets could maybe get a little bit more value, and I think that's where Seth Jarvis is that little bit more value.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna say deal, and here's why. First of all, before we get into any of the reasons why I'm taking this deal, this was submitted by Benjamin Kemp on Twitter, who his profile picture is him wearing a Carolina Hurricanes hat. So this was submitted by a Canes fan. This was not a Jets centric trade request. But Martin Necas, 24 years old, 71 points in 82 games last year. And if the Jets want to retool, this is the guy. Like you need centers back. Necas he's played wing. I think you could try him at center. I mean, I like your thinking where you get Jarvis because he's a Manitoba kid and he's going to want to stay here long term.
And long term future too. Like
right, because if you're from here, theoretically you want to stay here. You're not gonna
just play. Like he's looked good. It's not even just because he's a hometown kid. That's a bonus. I just think that he has a good long-term future too. Not to say Necas doesn't either. He's also young. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that Jarvis is younger. They're looking for guys it's in that same Alexis Lafreniere range. He's 20, 21. I know Jarvis's deal is up soon. You could sign him to an 8-year extension, and then he's here until the middle of his prime.
Yeah.
That was my thinking of it. That was like the main part of it. It was just the hometown thing's a bonus. But you keep going.
Yeah. Well, the Necas thing for me, like their second line center, Carolina, is Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Yeah. That's why they would make this deal. Like from a Carolina standpoint, if Necas is their second line right winger and they go out and get Svechnikov back and they add a few guys in free agency, this is a good deal for them, I think. And they're in win now mode because if you think the Jets have players coming up next year, holy moly, go look at the Carolina Hurricanes cap sheet. I'm just going to pull it up real quick here. Aho's up. Teravainen's up. Necas is up. Drury's up. Jarvis is up. Let's see who else here. Well, this year, Jesperi Fast, Puljujarvi, Jordan Staal, Paul Stastny, all those guys are up. Brady Shea, Brett Pesce. They're like all those players are UFAs next year. Or Necas is an RFA, but this is it for the Hurricanes. Either they're gonna win and everyone's gonna want to come back, or they're gonna bottom out and these players are gonna want to go because you don't have the cap space to retain all these players. Aho is gonna command north of $10 million, probably
12,
around there.
11, 12.
Yeah, he's gonna command some big time money. Teravainen, like all these players are
Svechnikov, like
Jarvis.
Jarvis is probably even gonna want 7. Well,
he might want like a bit of a bridge so that he can cash in big time. But my point is, like, if you're Carolina, you need players now because this core is like this is it. They have so many players up next year, and I think they gotta go for it. But I really like Martin Necas as a player. I think he's a big time point producer, and I think you could mold him into a center. If you search up online, like he's listed as a center on like Hockey DB. I don't know. I haven't paid much attention, but I do know he played mostly wing this year. That's why they had like a second line center issue. Like in the playoffs, they got kind of killed there. But even if he's a winger, I believe in the player. I think this would be a great deal. And then if Scheifele's on his way out anyways, and this is his last year on the team, I think Necas and Drury is a pretty good return. And I will include a little caveat. The tweet did say Scheifele with an extension, like a 3-4 year extension. So that also raises the price a bit because Carolina knows they're not just getting him for 1 year and then he's walking, right? Mm-hmm. But Carolina needs help offensively. They need a finishing talent. The guy scored 42 goals last year. Shooting heater or not, that would help out the Hurricanes, right?
We know that Mark Scheifele can score. It's the other parts of his game that we've always questioned about. We don't question his goal scoring. He'll put up 25 to 40 a season.
And I think Carolina is well suited to hide that. Like Carolina is well suited to have him just be a finisher, a scorer, and the defensive issues. Like they have 5 incredible defensive defensemen. that can just shut
and
it
their
down,
coaching
right?
staff is really good. So I'm
Yeah.
not. I wouldn't.
Rod
They
the
would.
bod.
Rod Brindamore, I'm sure, can probably find a way to hide Mark Scheifele like other coaches haven't been able to. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like Natchez. I think I wrote an article about that, about how if Scheifele were to get traded to the Hurricanes, I would want to see him as a part of the return. But you make a great point with Jarvis. If Jarvis is on the table, that's a good move as well. I think Jarvis would be more on the table if it's a PLD to Carolina trade.
that could be the case.
Yeah, but if in Scheifele's case, I do like the Natchez return if I were making that decision.
I think if you're Carolina, I think both PLD and Scheifele should be on the table.
Yeah.
I think you call the Jets and go, okay, who would you rather?
Yeah. No kidding.
Who would you think you could give to me? But
yeah, I agree. Now we talked about one Dubois. We talked about one for Scheifele. Let's do Connor Hellebuyck. This is the big one because not a lot of people know what a goalie in the middle of his prime is worth with 1 year left on his contract, right? Like that's a goalie's never been traded. Coming off of a Vezina finalist thing in the middle of his prime, like goalies just don't get traded in this. Like it just doesn't really happen.
Agency.
There's no precedent. There's no precedent for this, right?
This could set the precedent.
It could. It really
the
could.
Jets could be setting the precedent in something. It's not a good precedent, but they could be setting it.
It's not good, but it could be done. TJ on Twitter says Hellebuyck with an extension plus our 5th round pick from the Rangers this year to the LA Kings for Iafallo, Kapari, Turcotte, a 2023 second and a 2024 first. Elliott, deal or no deal?
I don't know if that's enough. I'm gonna go. I don't think that's enough. Again, if I'm the Jets, I would be. I know that could mean that deals fall through initially, but like with, let's say, guys like Scheifele and Hellebuyck, you can wait till the trade deadline. Yes, trading but the draft is great, so you can get more capital for that specific draft. But if you have to wait and get other prospects, then fine. The only player you really have to trade is PLD.
Yeah,
you won't get anything.
I still think Hellebuyck's value will be way higher now because teams know,
and it may
going into next year. Like LA knows, okay, our goaltending is figured out for the next year. And this tweet also says with an extension, so this would be like for LA for the next 3 years or whatever, right? 3-4
years. I just don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough value for me. I really, Connor Hellebuyck, I think probably has, maybe PLD rivals it, but I think Connor Hellebuyck personally has the highest trade value out of all the assets the Jets can trade.
For sure.
So you should be commanding, if you're going to give 1 first and like some pretty decent prospects, I don't know if that's enough. Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Turcotte is 5th overall pick 2019.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a few drafts ago now. Like he's played, what is this, 12 NHL games, never recorded a point. He's been in the AHL with the Ontario Reign, 17 points in 32 games. I mean, you gotta evaluate.
We have prospects that have put up more points than that.
Like you've got to evaluate. Like, yeah, he's a former 5th overall pick, and I know the Kings value him highly, and I know Kings fans value him highly. But at some point, you got to evaluate like what the player's actually doing and not where he was drafted.
Yeah.
Right. Like, is he a 5th overall pick? Is he living up to that expectation right now? No. Rasmus Kapari, 20th overall pick in 2018, played in the AHL last year. Like this, I don't know if the Kings like to take their time with prospects or what this is all about, but this is like Ville Heinola was drafted in 2019 and he's still in the AHL. And here we are saying, oh, he should be up in the NHL. Well, Kapari was drafted in 2018 and he's still in the AHL. Like he's a whole year behind. So
we've also talked about Ville not having the highest ceiling anymore. Like we've also now realized that, okay, he may not be the player that we hoped he was because his development has been stunted. Right. So
Kapari ended the year in the AHL. He got 15 points last year in the NHL. He seems to, I don't know. it's just not there for me yet. I don't see it. Now, Kapari's 23, Turcotte's 22. Can these players still break out next year? Of course, obviously. I just talked about how much I like Martin Necas, and he's only 24, right? But I think from the Kings, and this is another guy who hasn't really broken out yet. In the second half of last year, he kind of did. But if I'm talking with the Kings, whether it's Dubois, whether it's Hellebuyck, no matter what, I need Quinton Byfield.
Yeah.
I think I need Quinton Byfield because if it's Dubois with an extension, I don't know if that's enough to get Quinton Byfield back. Maybe you have to add something like Wheeler, half retained, or picks, whatever, to get that done. I don't even know if the Jets have to add to that. Like, I don't know how highly the Kings view Quinton Byfield, who's kind of struggled in the NHL to this point. Again, second half of last year, he started playing with Kopitar on his wing, I believe, and started playing really well. So maybe they like those flashes, right? But if I'm trading Hellebuyck, if I'm trading Dubois, you talked about how high those guys' values are. I need the Kings' ace prospect, and that's Quinton Byfield.
And the best, like, and Byfield, I know we were talking about 2018. Like, Byfield was so Kupari was 2018, and Turcotte was which draft? 2020 as well?
2019.
2019? Yeah.
Byfield was 2020.
2020. But he has at least shown that he is he can somewhat produce.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been he's that typical prospect. He's at that point where he's that typical prospect of, okay, he's too good for the AHL, but he's not good enough for the NHL. Like, he played 16 games in the AHL this year with the Ontario Reign. He had 15 points.
Yeah.
Like, so you know that he's on the cusp. That's where it's a little bit different. And Byfield's only 20.
Yeah.
The other guys are 22 and 23. Like, Byfield is a couple years younger and is showing some sort of promise. So that's where it's a little bit different. But yeah, like you said, I'm in 100% agreement. If I'm trading a Vezina candidate goaltender, and we know that there isn't a precedent, I think the precedent should be set that you should be trading one of your top three prospects. I don't know if they do consider Byfield to be a prospect anymore, or if he's their number one. But
yeah,
just from my thought and evaluation, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm trading my Vezina caliber and finalist and has won a Vezina goaltender. No one's ever done this before. If I'm thinking in my head what I think his value should be, just based off of kind of rational thinking, should be your top three prospect in a first or another pretty decent prospect, like top 15.
Yeah,
and Connor Hellebuyck should be commanding high value. That's what it should be. So if high value is 2 top 15 prospects, 1 in the top 3 or top 5, then that's what that is. And maybe a second round pick.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this deal for me gets it done, because I know Alex Iafallo's in that deal, and that's an NHL vet. But
he's in the, like, he's going to be right in the Jets top 6, middle 6 if that deal happened.
And I don't hate Iafallo as a player. He's good.
No,
I just don't think that, and he fits the description. I just don't think for this trade, the rest of the assets are good enough. Like, I think it could be Iafallo, Byfield, another decent prospect, and a second for Connor Hellebuyck. That'd be kind of where my evaluation would be. And that's probably Hellebuyck with an extension. I think the extension has to be in there for, I think, them to command that much value.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think they still get a lot even without the extension.
Yeah, I guess the question really comes down to, do you value Kupari and Turcotte or Byfield? Like, Kupari and Turcotte as one, or Byfield? Because, again, I talked about it with Turcotte and said, well, he was a 5th round pick, but you got to evaluate what he is right now. Byfield, at 20 years old, has 22 points this year in 53 NHL games. I know a lot of that came in the second half of last year. He really struggled to start and then really came on at the end. But again, like, at 20, I don't know if I want to see more than that from a number 2 overall pick. We talked about Lafreniere. Like, these, you're not going to get much better than this. You got to take some shots. And I think Byfield is the best player to take a shot on, if that makes sense. Like, you got Lafreniere, you got Turcotte, these high drafted guys that haven't broken out yet. Byfield, you can put in that category as well. And I think if you're making a bet on talent and size and NHL readiness in 4 years from now, I think Byfield is the best bet. So that's where
I
that
think a
comes from me.
comparable. I think I know where you're coming from, because the comparable I make here, and I know obviously we weren't trading him, but is Cole Perfetti, in that we'd seen him play really well at the AHL level, but then we hadn't seen him play well at the NHL level. And then he this year he was good out the gate and then kind of slowed down,
Mm-hmm.
but that's young
Yeah.
prospects. But
Yeah.
if you see that good part at any point, either it's a good start or a good end, that's good progress. And
It's
to
flashes,
me,
right?
it's flashes, and that's good. I don't watch LA Kings games. I don't know if Turcotte has shown promise or if Kupari has played and shown promise, right? But because I've heard more about Quinton Byfield, and I've heard more, not just his name, but like, hey, he looks good here. He made this play. He seems to be meshing well with these players and these types, right? So that's where I kind of get that from. And that was kind of my thoughts, where I kind of went to Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti didn't start started really well, then he kind of cooled off, and then he had some games where he was better with some guys and not good with others. But Cole Perfetti's only a year younger, and they were in the same draft 8 picks apart.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, I think, I know they're not the same type of player, but I just think that what we saw with Perfetti took him a little bit of time, but once he got his footing, then he started to roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just needs to be the case with Byfield. I think he needed to get his feet going, and then obviously we saw towards the end of the year it was better. That's why I think that Byfield is the better choice, because I think he has a better season next year, whether it be with the Kings or the Jets or whatever happens this offseason after the draft or after the draft. But I think we see him take another step, and that's where we saw Cole Perfetti. We were hoping he would take a step this year, and he took a step.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Byfield, like, even when he was drafted second overall in 2020, people were saying, like, this is a project player. Like, he's 6'5", 220 pounds, center. That's supposed to be, like, two-way dominant, puts up points, right? But we knew coming out of the gate that wasn't going to happen right away. That wasn't going to happen when he's 20 years old. Like, this year wasn't supposed to be the year where he breaks out. That's coming next year or the year after that. And what you want to do as a small market team is get players before they break out, right? So I think if you're trading Dubois, who's puts the Kings in win now mode, and if you're trading Hellebuyck, who puts the Kings in even more of a win now mode,
and they need a goalie more so.
Yeah, I mean, if they're trading for Dubois, this is completely gone away from the original trade proposal, but that's fine. If they're trading for Dubois, like, Kopitar has 1 year left. Kopitar's 35. Obviously, he had an incredible year last year. He can still play. But if he has 1 year left, and they trade for Dubois with an extension, then their centers for the next 5 years are Philip Deneau and Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? Now, do they want Quinton Byfield in that mix? Do they want Deneau to be a third-line center? I don't know.
I would assume so.
I don't know
depth
if
is better, but
right. I don't know if Byfield is on the table in that scenario, right? Because if they're trading for Dubois with an extension, that's why. Because Kopitar's up, he might not come back. That's the reasoning. Now, if they're trading for Hellebuyck, then it's like they're all in right now for the next 2-3 years, right? Dubois is more of a future, like they're trying to prolong their window because they're going to sign him to an 8-year extension, I would assume, unless Dubois really wants to go to Montreal. If LA is not good enough for him,
he signs a 2-year extension because he still
So-
wants to go to Montreal.
LA is not good enough. Not good enough.
No,
but
can't. California, nope.
No good. But I don't really know what else to say. Quinton Byfield is the guy for me. From if we're trading with LA, no matter who, Dubois, Hellebuyck, I want Byfield back. Carolina, I want Natchez. You said you liked Jarvis.
Yeah, I would take Natchez if we got a little bit more from the deal, but obviously I think if Jarvis is on the table, you swing for Jarvis. If he's not on the table, then you obviously, if Martin Natchez is on the table, you take Martin Natchez, right?
Yeah.
I think it just depends on who's on the table and what the other assets coming back are with the Carolina deal.
Yeah. And I think LA is one of the best teams to trade with if you're the Winnipeg Jets. Like, they need They need a goalie, like you said. They have a lot of prospects. Like, I'm not counting out Alex Turcotte and Rasmus Kapari as players. Like, they're still young too. Like, they just haven't shown it yet, but they could totally break out next year on the Kings or on the Jets. If the Jets gave them a shot in the top 6, maybe Alex Turcotte plays amazing with Cole Perfetti. Maybe they just gel and they're a dynamic duo. You know, like there's things there that you just can't really account for. It's easy for me to say just looking at a spreadsheet or looking at how many points he had in the AHL last year, but you never really know, right? So the last trade here, and we don't have to spend too much time on this, but
it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. It was submitted by Noah Lafort, who has submitted questions, a ton of stuff.
Love you, Noah.
Very loyal listener to the podcast. Yes. But he said Dubois, Scheifele, and Hellebuyck. So everyone to Chicago.
How about Wheeler also half retained?
Wheeler half retained. No, throw everyone in there. So the trade request was Dubois, Scheifele, Hellebuyck to the Chicago Blackhawks for the first overall pick and Connor Bedard. Now, obviously, I think as a Jets fan, you take that, right? Like, are we? Yeah. I like all these.
I would assume so.
Anyway.
I don't know if there's a Jets fan. Well, there are probably some Jets fans that would say that Connor Bedard is too small and he just puts up points and he doesn't get into the corners and whatever. But
he's not built for playoff hockey.
Yeah,
he's just not. But Jonathan March, did he win the Conn Smythe?
Yes,
How
he
tall
did.
Is he? 5'9"?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Anyways, playoff hockey, crazy. Hey, you got to be 6'4" to win in the playoffs, I guess.
And 225.
Yeah, you got to
have to lead the league in penalty minutes.
Exactly. No, but back to this trade proposal. I think as a Jets fan, as a small market team, like getting a franchise player like Bedard, I think is a no-brainer. Even if you have to give up like the farm, all three of these players, right? But if you're Chicago, I don't think you take that, which is weird.
No, I don't think so. But
even though it's like 2 top 6 centers, a Vezina goalie, I still don't think you take it because Hellebuyck's on the
and probably 30. Like let's say the Jets throw in their first too, like do a first swap technically.
Maybe with a first you take that because the Jets, if they trade away all those players and get Bedard, they're going to be terrible next year.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you take the first and then that's another top 10 pick.
A future first, not the current first. If I were the Blackhawks, I'd take a future
like
first.
next year's first. Yeah. But it's just a fun exercise to think about, like how much is Connor Bedard really worth? Because I think as a Jets fan, you take that 100%. Yeah. But as a Blackhawks fan or as Blackhawks management, you don't take that. I think the window is not right now for the Chicago Blackhawks, right? And those are win now players. You don't take that deal. Now, I'm going to go through some names here across the NHL.
Well, yeah, we talked about this before the pod. Yes. We were kind of saying who would fit the bill.
Yes. Now, if you were these teams, so we'll start with Connor McDavid. If you were the Oilers, would you trade this player 1-for-1 for the first overall pick? I'm assuming McDavid is a no. McDavid's a no.
He fits the value for Chicago. He fits the value, but I think if you're Edmonton, you say no.
Yes. If you're Edmonton, you say no. Let's go to Colorado. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. Do any of those do it for you?
If you're Colorado, if it's somebody else, like if it's a Landeskog and like a package, maybe.
Nah.
But I still don't think it happens.
Yeah. I think Makar is a no. McKinnon, I think about.
I think McKinnon is a think about. What is his? No, his contract's not up, is it?
In like 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Soon.
So
signed. No, I'm dumb. He just signed like the biggest extension.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I know it was, but he signed an extension. So I was like, no. I think we're both off track.
I was still working under the parameter that he has like a bargain contract, which is not the case. But he's just had such a steal of a contract for so long that I was like, oh, Nathan McKinnon is
Mikko Rantanen.
Rantanen. If I'm the Avs, I do that.
That's what I'm
Rantanen
saying.
for
I think then you do that, but
Austin Matthews.
Oh, that's actually a shout.
If I'm the Leafs, I do that. I think.
I think that's a great deal. If I'm the Leafs,
Yeah,
Like,
I think I do that.
you get to keep the rest of the core. Well, I guess it'd be core 3, and
Or
then you
Connor
bring in
Bedard, if that were to happen, going to
like
Toronto.
he would. I'm sorry. I think honestly, I know the Blackhawk, like, we can't change the draft lottery, but I think this like him going to a big market was probably the worst thing for the league for ratings wise to balance out the rest of the teams. But also, I think it hurts him because now he has to deal with big city media. I know he's had to deal with that already, but
he's
that's
pretty
a lot of
media
pressure.
trained. Like he's pretty good with the media. There was that whole thing after they won the gold medal.
Well, yeah.
He was just like, I don't want to talk about me. Like, yeah, I think he's
Well, but I'm not even just saying he's just gonna get berated whenever
Yeah.
he's playing. So
I mean, I think everyone expects the Blackhawks to be bad next year. So if it's a growth year for Bedard as well, that's fine. If he puts up 30 goals or more, then that's still insane because he's on probably
On
the
a-
worst team that
but
we've
like
seen in a
Toronto,
long
him
time.
being in Toronto and them having to win and him
Oof.
contribute would be
Yeah.
that'd be unreal.
I mean,
that'd be just
I will say for ratings, Leafs, Oilers, like every time, like you would have to change the divisions to get Leafs, Oilers like 10 times a year because they would be Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid in two of the biggest markets in Canada. Like that would be, you would have to, if you're the NHL, find a way to just make that happen more than twice or however many times it happens now.
Yeah.
But anyways,
go back to the Canadian divisions. Or the Canadian
go back.
division.
Yeah. As a Jets like podcast, that I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
Although we'd have to play Pierre-Luc Dubois 9 times a year because when he goes to Montreal, it's
Well, that's okay.
that's okay. Yeah.
It's just it's still just 3 guys. It's just PLD.
I saw Nick Lynham on his podcast talk about how Montreal fans are like talking about Dubois and all that. And then it's like, well, if they were to get Dubois, let's say, and they sign him 8x8, they have now handcuffed themselves with Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Pierre-Luc Dubois as their 3 long-term forwards that they're building this team
and you kind of have to go into win now in the next like 2 years.
And those 3 are not good enough to win you a Stanley Cup. I'm sorry.
No.
Like if like
they're good players.
He made the point. He was like, if you want to finish 6th in the East every year, sure, go right ahead. Like that's
they're good
fine.
players.
Yeah.
Like they're good top higher tiered talent, but not going to win you a cup.
No, I don't think that does it for them. But anyways, I think is that basically or Leon Draisaitl too.
I think that's still a no. I think Edmonton's content with who they have. I did mention before the podcast, I said Connor McDavid and Draisaitl would be enough value, but now looking at the Avs, Mikko Rantanen,
yeah, I think McKinnon and McCarr's a no. McKinnon, you think about. Matthews, I would do if I was the Leafs. And then I don't really think there's anyone else. Like everyone else is a no from the Hawks side of things. From the Hawks side of things, like you're not really taking much because Connor Bedard, like your team's gonna suck. You want to be good for the next 15 years. You take Connor Bedard and you run. You don't make these win now moves. But it's a fun exercise to think about. So thank you to Noah for giving us some weird exercise to talk about because that's what this podcast is all about.
Oh yeah.
Unless you want to like whip out a trade out of your head, I don't have anything else.
I can't really think of anything. Like we've talked about, like I mean, I guess Buffalo's on the table still apparently for Connor Hellebuyck. But in that deal, I'd only take Devin Levi. Like I'd have to take a goalie back in that deal, especially if Levi is there. But other than that, like it's been Montreal, the Rangers, LA, and then Buffalo's kind of died, but they're still kind of around in the sweepstakes.
I just don't think, like if I'm Buffalo, I think I keep Devin Levi and let this core grow together and just have him be the goalie of the future, you know?
Yeah.
I don't really know if they're in win now mode. If I was them, like you could be in win now mode if you really wanted to. You can make them.
You can always be in win now mode.
Oh, well, yeah, just be like Vegas. They're always
or the Jets.
The Jets believe in this core, Elliott. Yeah. Don't worry. Yeah.
It will come around. They will make a miraculous run to the Western. Oh, wait, they already did that. Anyway.
When they run it back next year, you just watch. They're
making the Western Conference final.
Run. Yes. No, but let's wrap this up because I think we've done a lot of mocks. Mock trade season is always fun. Just from a little scheduling standpoint, we're gonna do a draft episode, I believe.
That's the best part.
Next week. Yeah. So we're gonna do some research on some prospects. I've already started a bit of my rankings. I'm gonna have a mock draft coming out soon. I love draft season. It's great. Yeah. And we talked a few weeks ago on whether or not the Jets are gonna be picking more than once in the first round. They might be, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta you might not want to say, oh well, top 10 picks, top 10 prospects, whatever. The Jets aren't picking there, right? They're only picking 18. But when the 7th overall pick comes up and the Jets, on the draft floor, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been traded and the Jets are on the clock. Whoa, right? All of a sudden, here are the Jets. So it's something to watch for because it's a really fun episode for us. We haven't done it before because, as many of you know, we started the podcast October of last year. So all this offseason stuff is new. But the mock trades, I mean, that's a really fun thing to talk about. Maybe we'll do a little bit of that next week if Brian can join us, and get his thoughts. But I'm really looking forward to the draft episode.
Oh yeah. The draft time for any league is some of my favorite times. So should be good. Yeah. Should be fun.
Should be fun. Alrighty. Let's get out of here. Thank you everyone for listening. It was a really fun episode. A lot of fun exercises, a lot of fun mental exercises, but yeah, go Jets, go.
Still go Sea Bears.
Go Jets, go into the draft. Let's go.
Pick right. Oh wait, we won't know for another 5 years.
All right, see ya.